Hi everyone, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com. Today we're back for day 2 of our collaborative patchwork backpack design. And as promised, I finished cutting out all of my squares, which measure 4 inches by 4 inches. I ended up cutting out 70 squares. And what I imagine will happen, of course it's open to your interpretation and design, is that we're going to use 25 squares for the front and back of the exterior, and then 10 squares for the sides and 10 squares for the base. So we can talk more about that exterior design in this video, but first I want to get you started piecing your squares together. So this is one layout here of 5 by 5 layout, so 25 squares. So this would be the front of the backpack or the back of the backpack. And I don't really agonize too much over the colors or the layout with the patchwork design, because if I did, I feel like that would really take the fun out of it. So the only rule that I really have is that I try not to have two of the same fabrics touching, so two like pieces together. But I think you can see it's a nice color variation here. So if you have ever quilted before, then this next part of the design process will be very easy for you. If you have never quilted before, let me show you how to piece fabric. So take 2 squares and position them pretty sides together and just line them up so that you have a nice straight edge, and then you're going to stitch from the top to the bottom. When I am piecing, I do not back stitch at the beginning or the end. I just leave a nice long tail. I've never had anything come apart on me, and you'll see why, because we're going to quilt this. So I think when you back stitch, at least with my machine, it kind of bunches it up a little bit. So I'd skip that part. If you really don't feel good about that, go ahead, back stitch. You know, I mean, it's not gonna make or break the project. So for this, I'm going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Somebody once asked me why I choose 3/8, and the only reason is because that is with the Janome machines where my sewing machine foot lines up exactly with the edge. So it's just a really easy point for me to position my eye. But you choose any seam allowance you like. Just be consistent the entire construction process so that all of our seams will line up. So you're going to put the 2 pieces right sides together and stitch those down. And then see how I have a long tail on both ends. And then you would open that up, and you've now begun constructing the rows. So each row will have 5 pieces. So then get your next piece and put that right sides facing, pretty sides together, and line up one side, stitch. Leave a long tail. Continue with the next piece. Picked up an extra there. And then this is the 5th piece in the row that I'm attaching. And so now I have one row complete, and I'm going to continue on and stitch all of these together until I have 5 rows. So I'm going to leave that there. I have already stitched the other side of this together. So I have 5 rows here so that I can show you how to piece those rows together, which it's the exact same concept. You're going to position each row pretty sides together. Let's make us a little space here. So I highly suggest that you iron these as well and just press those seams flat. I did a good job ironing them before I started, so I'm going to skip that step right now, but you may want to iron yours. So I have one row there, and I'm going to lay the second row on top of that, pretty sides facing, and then rather than aligning these side edges, I'm going to focus on aligning that first seam, okay? And then head on over, same seam allowance, 3/8, and I'm going to stitch straight down. And now I have 2 rows attached, and the seams lined up pretty good. They're not exactly perfect, and that is because I was using a whole bunch of different types of fabric and I was not paying any mind to the grain. So almost every fabric has a little stretch to it, and that's why it is not going to impact the beauty of this design at all. So let's pick the next strip and position that pretty sides facing, and I'm just going to focus on lining up that first seam. And that sun popped out and is shooting right through that window. I love that. I love sewing in the sun, but I think that it might impact how you're seeing me, which is kind of a silly situation. So I may just hop over there and lower that blind for just a second so you can still see me. Nothing wrong with the sun, but I don't want you to miss what I'm doing here. So I have 4 rows. I'm going to attach the 5th row to the panel, lining up that first seam. All right, and now I have one panel complete. And I think that there were a couple spots where the fabric did double up because I wasn't paying attention there. So with your rows, if an easy way to fix that is just to turn it around, it's still certainly very pretty. So I'm going to head over to the iron. I'm going to press this really well, and I'm going to get rid of all these little extra strings. I want to give you the measurements of this panel, and go ahead and make a note of the measurements of your panel, because we're going to cut the interior panels when the time comes to these exact measurements. So your exterior panel should be about 17.5 inches by 17.5 inches, a perfect square. And I will be right back with a pressed front panel. The next thing I want to do is quilt the top of this, and I'm just going to do that on the machine. I think I'm going to use like a diamond crisscross method, which I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is a bag that I made 8 years ago. Can you believe it? And it's still in use. I made this for my daughter Isabel when she was born, and it was our diaper bag. And now, of course, she's 8, so she doesn't need it, but I use it for my work bag. And you can see the quilting that I put across this, and I just free-handed that with my eye, and it turned out pretty good. You can do any type of quilting that you like on the top of your panels because it's your bag, but I think I'm going to replicate this look. Now, this was very time consuming, so I will get you started on what that will look like, and then I'll finish up tonight, and then we'll pick up with the bag tomorrow. So I'm going to show you how to get started with the quilting, and then we have some important decisions to make about the pockets. So I like to use a quilt weight batting here, and this is a Pellon product, and it is cotton. And so I just put that on my cutting mat and then line up the edges. And I smooth that out. The batting will grab the fabric. You want to make sure that you have all the edges covered. And that's lined up nice. And then it just kind of grips it as you press it down. And then I'll just freehand cut it. And before you start a bigger quilting project like this, you would want to make sure that your bobbin's full. And if you want this to go quicker, you could increase your stitch length. You could space your rows further apart. So I'm just going to start, I want that diamond look, so I'm going to start by driving through the middle of each of these squares, like that, on the diagonal. Okay, and I think I have enough that you can see what that looks like. So then after I got all the way across going this way, then I would reverse it and come back across the other way. So that first box would essentially have an X. And then that will create that diamond quilting. So that's going to be fairly time consuming. You don't have to quilt yours, but it does add such a wonderful depth and texture to the bag that I think you'll be very happy if you did take the time to quilt it. So for our next decisions, we need to decide what kind of exterior pockets we're going to have on the backpack. And I'm going to take you over here to the dry erase board and just give you a couple options. And then if you will let me know in the comments which option you prefer, we'll just go with whatever receives the most support, the most popular choice. And if at all possible, I'll try and explain how to incorporate the other options too. It may or may not be possible for me to do that, but we'll just go ahead and go with majority rules on the exterior pockets. So let me show you some options. So if this is our backpack here, and this will be the panel that we just created, the front, and then there'll be another one on the back, and our side panels will be here. We could do pockets here on the side, and that would be great for like drinks and things like that. So you can see that. So we could put in side pockets here. We could also, on the back side where the straps are going to be, so pretend that we're looking at the back side here, I could teach you how to incorporate a zipper pocket here, and the pocket would actually be in between the layers there, so it would not show on the outside. There would be this little hidden zipper, and then that would rest against your back, and you could put your valuables in there, which I think is a really awesome feature. Then another option would be to put on a front pocket here with a snap closure, and if that could be a full pocket there, or we could do a two-way divided front pocket. Okay, so there are 3 options for the pockets. We could do 2 side load pockets, we could do 2 front pockets, or we can do the rear zipper pocket. Then the 4th option would be to incorporate all of those pockets, which would indeed be a lot of pockets. So it's just really up to you. I'm up for whatever you want to know how to do, and we'll just continue this project for as long as it takes. So until then, please note the creative genius in me salutes the creative genius in you. I'll see you tomorrow.